I arrive without arrival, as I often do, already standing at the edge of a river that seems to know my name, even though it never speaks it aloud. The Nile moves past me with a patience that feels older than counting. Its surface carries the color of the sky, a softened blue touched with dust and light, and along its banks the reeds bend in a way that suggests listening rather than motion. This is ancient Egypt, though no one here would call it ancient. It is simply now, unfolding at the pace of water and sun. The air is warm but not heavy. It holds the scent of mud, flowering plants, and something mineral, like stone that has spent its life absorbing daylight. I take a slow step forward, and the sand beneath my feet accepts the shape of me, without comment. Across the river, pale structures rise from the earth as if they were coaxed upward rather than built. Temples and storehouses, walls and columns, all aligned with a quiet confidence that suggests they expect to remain. Their surfaces are marked with carvings that catch the light at certain angles, releasing shapes of birds, eyes, and boats that seem to drift even while fixed in stone. I do not hurry toward them. The journey here is not about reaching. Instead, I let myself follow the curve of the riverbank, where small boats rest half in water, half in air, their shadows forming dark mirrors beneath them. A man passes at a distance, carrying nothing visible, his pace untroubled. We do not exchange words. His presence feels like a brief chord struck and released. The sky above is wide, more expansive than skies I have known elsewhere. It feels closer to the earth, as if the distance between ground and stars has been gently folded. I sense that this is a place where people look upward not for escape, but for rhythm. The heavens here are not distant. They are practical, intimate, woven into planting and harvest, into ritual and rest. As I continue, the ground rises slightly, and the river slips out of view behind a bend. Ahead, a temple complex rests in the open, its entrance framed by tall pylons that cast long shadows even in the earlier hours of the day. The shadows stretch toward me like invitations that do not insist. I step into their coolness and feel the temperature shift, as though I have crossed into a slower layer of time. Inside, the space opens gradually. Columns shaped like bundled plants rise toward a ceiling painted deep blue, scattered with faint stars. The air is still, and my footsteps sound softer here, absorbed by stone worn smooth through generations of passage. I sense that this place has learned how to hold silence, how to let it deepen without becoming empty. Light enters from above through narrow openings, falling in angled beams that illuminate dust drifting lazily in the air. Each beam feels deliberate, as if placed by someone who understood exactly how the sun would move across the sky on this particular day. I stand within one of these bands of light and feel its warmth settle on my shoulders like a remembered gesture. Along the walls, inscriptions run in careful lines. I cannot read them in the way of translation, but their presence communicates nonetheless. They speak of continuity, of names carried forward, of the agreement between earth and sky. There is no urgency in them. Whatever needed to be said has already been placed here, and it trusts time to do the rest. I move deeper, passing into a courtyard open to the sky. At its center, a shallow pool reflects the blue above, broken occasionally by the ripple of a breeze. Around it, stone benches wait without expectation. I sit, letting the moment arrange itself. Somewhere beyond the walls, the river continues its work, but here the only movement is light shifting across stone. As I rest, I become aware of the sound of birds overhead, their calls brief and precise. They cross the sky and are gone, leaving no trace but the memory of motion. I think of how many such crossings have occurred above this place, unnoticed and complete. and how the stones have watched without keeping count. Time here does not press forward. It circulates, like water drawn and returned, like breath. I feel myself settling into that circulation, my thoughts slowing until they match the pace of shadow and sun. There is nothing to solve, nothing to uncover. The temple does not reveal secrets. It offers steadiness. When I rise again, it is without decision. I step back toward the entrance, carrying with me the quiet weight of stone and sky. Outside, the light feels brighter but not harsher, as if my eyes have learned a different way of seeing. The river waits somewhere beyond, and with it, more of this land that measures its days by stars and floods rather than clocks. I turn in that direction, ready to continue drifting along the Nile, letting it guide me further into its long, unbroken. The path back toward the river slopes gently, as if the land itself prefers gradual departures. I follow it without marking my steps, letting the temple recede behind me until it becomes part of the horizon rather than a destination left behind. Ahead, the Nile reappears, widening into view with the same unhurried presence, its surface catching fragments of sky and carrying them onward. Near the water's edge, the day unfolds in small, complete gestures. Clay jars rest in the shade, their rounded forms dark against the sand. A palm tree leans slightly, its fronds whispering to one another in a language made of air and light. I pause beside the trunk and place my hand against its rough surface, feeling the warmth stored there from the morning sun. The tree does not respond, yet the contact feels acknowledged. A boat drifts close to shore, tethered loosely, rocking with a rhythm that seems learned rather than accidental. Its hull bears marks from many journeys, shallow scratches that speak of reeds, stones, and time. I step into it without ceremony. The boat accepts my weight and settles, as though it has been expecting this moment, or one very much like it. The current takes hold gently. There is no sense of being carried away, only of being included. The river does not hurry the boat, nor does it resist. Together we move along the center of the water, where reflections blur and reassemble with each ripple. The sky above appears both closer and farther here, stretched across the surface in a softened mirror. As we drift, the banks change slowly. Fields open up, green against the pale earth, their edges defined by careful channels that guide water inward. I sense the quiet labor that shaped these lines, repeated over seasons until the land learned how to drink. Beyond the fields, low structures rise, homes, storehouses, places of daily return. Smoke curls upward from one of them, thinning as it climbs, dissolving into the afternoon. Voices carry faintly across the water, indistinct and unhurried. They do not call to me. They exist within their own circle of moments, complete without my attention. I listen anyway, not for meaning, but for texture, the rise and fall of sound, the way it blends with wind and water until it becomes part of the landscape. The sun begins its slow descent, though nothing here signals urgency. Light shifts almost imperceptibly, turning from bright to mellow, as if easing itself into a different role. Shadows lengthen along the banks, stretching into the water and breaking apart at the surface. I watch them drift past, each one briefly whole, then gone. Further along, stone markers appear near the river's edge, their tops worn smooth. They stand like quiet witnesses, noting levels reached by past floods, though they make no effort to explain themselves. The river remembers what they mark. It carries that knowledge forward without inscription. The boat glides nearer to a small rise, where steps have been carved into the stone, descending directly into the water. I guide the boat toward them and step out, my feet meeting cool rock that feels steady and familiar. From here, the land slopes upward toward a structure set slightly apart from the others. A low building with an open roof, positioned to face the widening sky. Inside, the air feels different. It holds a clarity, as though shaped for looking upward rather than inward. Simple instruments rest along the walls. Shallow bowls, rods aligned with openings, surfaces marked with fine lines. They are arranged not as tools awaiting use, but as companions to observation. Nothing here demands action. I stand beneath the open roof and let my gaze follow the sky as it deepens in color. The first stars appear without announcement, faint at first, then steady. I sense that this place exists for moments like this, when light and darkness meet without conflict. The stars are not distant points. They feel like familiar presences, returning to their places as expected. Time stretches again, or perhaps it loosens its grip. I cannot tell how long I remain there, watching the sky complete its transition. Eventually, the cool of evening settles, and the air carries the promise of night along the river. I step back outside, where the boat waits, rocking softly, ready to be part of the next unmeasured stretch. I return to the water and let it take me once more, the stars now reflected alongside me, doubling the sky and making the journey feel both grounded and infinite. Night gathers fully as the boat moves on, though it does so without darkness feeling complete. The sky above and the river below now share the same deep tone, broken only by starlight and the soft gleam of the moon, which rises not dramatically, but as if it has always been there, and is simply becoming noticeable again. The water sounds different at night. Each small movement seems more distinct, not louder but clearer, as though the river has fewer things competing for attention. I trail my fingers briefly through the surface and feel the cool close around them, then release, leaving behind only a widening ring that fades almost as soon as it forms. Along the banks, lamps appear one by one. Their light is warm and steady, held close to the ground, illuminating doorways, steps, the edges of paths. They do not push back the night. They settle into it. From a distance, the settlement feels less like a cluster of structures and more like a constellation rearranged at ground level. The boat drifts closer to shore again, guided by instinct rather than intention. I step out onto packed earth that remembers many feet. The night air carries the scent of bread and water, of plants cooling after the day's heat. Somewhere nearby, a low murmur of voices blends with the sound of insects beginning their careful work. I walk slowly between the buildings. Their walls are thick, designed to hold coolness, to soften extremes. Doorways stand open, revealing quiet interiors where people sit or rest, their movements unremarkable and complete. No one turns toward me. I pass as gently as a thought that does not insist on being followed. At the edge of the settlement, a narrow path leads upward, away from the river. I follow it as it curves toward higher ground, where the air feels thinner, clearer. The path ends at a small rise overlooking the water, marked only by a ring of stones set deliberately into the earth. In the center, the ground is smooth, worn by time and presence. I sit there, facing the river. From this height, its course is visible as a dark ribbon threaded with light. Boats move slowly along it, their lamps gliding like careful stars. I realized that the river is not merely passing through this place. It is holding it together, giving shape to night as much as day. Above me, the stars have shifted, though I could not say when. Their patterns feel purposeful, yet unforced, as if meaning arises simply from their continued return. I sense that people here have watched these same arrangements countless times, not to decode them, but to align themselves gently within a larger rhythm. Time loosens further. Thoughts come and go without needing resolution. I think of stone absorbing sunlight, of water carrying memory, of sky offering orientation without instruction. None of these ideas settle into conclusions. They hover briefly, then drift on, leaving a sense of quiet continuity behind them. A breeze moves across the rise, brushing past my shoulders and continuing toward the river. It feels like a signal, though not one meant to be interpreted. I stand again, feeling no separation between rest and movement. Both belong equally to this place. When I return to the boat, the night has deepened but not closed. The river remains open, receptive. I step back into the slow current and let it carry me onward, past lamps and shadows, beneath stars that neither watch nor judge, but simply remain. The journey continues without urgency, unfolding into the long, steady night along the Nile. The night begins to thin almost imperceptibly. It does not retreat so much as soften, releasing its deepest tones into something lighter, more translucent. I notice it first in the stars, whose sharpness eases, their edges less defined as the sky prepares to change its focus. The river senses this before I do. Its surface alters, becoming less reflective, more receptive to what is coming. The boat continues without guidance, following a bend that carries us toward a stretch of land where stone rises closer to the water, forming low terraces shaped by careful hands long ago. I step ashore and walk along these stones, their surfaces cool and smoothed by countless feet and the steady work of time. Ahead, the land opens into a broad, quiet space, an expanse of sand and rock, where the desert begins its gradual conversation with the river. There is no clear boundary, only a gentle exchange where one texture gives way to another. I move inland, away from the water's murmur, and the silence changes. It becomes wider, less layered, but not empty. The desert at this hour holds a particular stillness, one that feels attentive rather than asleep. Each grain of sand seems placed rather than scattered. As the sky lightens, color returns carefully. Pale gold touches the horizon, then expands upward, washing over stone and sand alike. The sun does not rise abruptly. It arrives as a presence long expected, warming the world without announcing itself. In this early light, structures appear that were hidden before. A line of stone figures stands half buried, their forms softened, faces calm and forward-looking. They do not command attention. They simply remain, aligned with something beyond immediate sight. I walk among them slowly, noticing how they hold the light, how shadows gather at their bases and then withdraw. Further on, a long wall stretches across the landscape, its surface marked by shallow carvings. I trace one with my fingers, feeling the groove where stone was once persuaded to give way. The markings speak not in symbols I decode, but in rhythm. The repetition of gesture, the steadiness of hand required to leave something lasting. The sun climbs higher, and with it comes warmth that feels purposeful rather than intense. The desert responds subtly. Colors deepen, distant forms sharpen. The land reveals itself layer by layer, never all at once. I reach a vantage point where the river is visible again, a narrow ribbon now bright with morning. From here, the relationship between water and desert becomes clear, not opposition, but balance. Each defines the other. Without the river, the desert would stretch endlessly. Without the desert, the river's presence would lose its meaning. I sit on a low stone and let this understanding settle without turning it into thought. There is no need to name it. The land already knows. It has carried this quiet agreement for generations, passing it along through form rather than explanation. A faint sound reaches me, the distant rhythm of work beginning near the water, tools meeting earth, voices exchanging brief acknowledgments. Day is taking shape again, not as interruption, but as continuation. When I stand, it is with the sense that nothing has been left behind. Night, desert, river, stone, all remain available, layered within one another. I turn back toward the Nile, following the path of light as it draws the eye gently downward. The boat waits where I left it, unchanged, patient. I step in and let the current gather me once more, carrying the morning forward along its ancient course. Morning settles fully as the river carries me onward, though it does so without fanfare. The light now has weight, resting on the water and the banks with a gentle certainty. Colors clarify, the green of cultivated land, the pale ochre of stone, the muted blue of the sky stretched wide above everything. The current draws the boat toward a busier stretch of river. Movement increases, but remains unhurried. Other boats pass at a respectful distance, their occupants focused on their own small tasks, adjusting a rope, steadying a basket, watching the water ahead. Our paths intersect briefly, then separate, each continuing along its own quiet purpose. I guide the boat toward a landing where the riverbank has been shaped into broad steps. Here the water meets stone in a practiced exchange, rising and falling without friction. I step out and feel the sun warming the rock beneath my feet, drawing the last of the night's coolness away. Beyond the steps, a wide open area unfolds, bordered by low buildings and shaded walkways. This place feels designed for gathering, though not for crowds. Space is left intentionally open, allowing air and light to move freely. I walk through it slowly, noticing how sound behaves here, how voices do not echo, but remain close to their source, as if respecting the calm. Under a long colonnade, stone columns stand evenly spaced, their surfaces etched with faint patterns that repeat without exact duplication. Between them, people pass carrying objects of daily use, woven mats, bundles of reeds, shallow trays dusted with grain. Each movement feels complete in itself, not leading towards something else. I pause beside a basin where water flows in a steady, narrow stream. It is fed from the river through channels that disappear beneath the ground, re-emerging here clear and cool. I cup my hands and drink, feeling the water's path continue through me briefly, before returning to the larger cycle. There is no sense of taking, only of participation. Nearby, a shaded room opens toward the courtyard. Inside, the light is softer, filtered through stone screens that break it into patterns. The air holds a quiet concentration. Along the walls, surfaces are prepared for writing. smooth stone, carefully plastered areas, low tables worn by use. A few figures sit or stand here, their attention resting on marks slowly appearing beneath their hands. I do not approach closely. Observation feels enough. The act of recording, of placing thoughts, counts, names, or movements into a durable form, seems less about preservation than alignment. What is written here is not meant to capture everything, only to keep pace with the flow of days and seasons. Leaving the room, I step back into sunlight and feel its warmth settle again. The courtyard has shifted subtly while I was inside. Shadows have moved, lengthening slightly, redrawing the space. Nothing else has changed, yet everything has adjusted. I wander toward the edge of the open area, where the land begins to rise again. From this higher ground, I can see both the river and the desert beyond, each extending outward in their own way. The buildings cluster between them, not as a barrier, but as a bridge, a lived-in middle where balance is practiced daily rather than declared. A narrow path leads away from the settlement, marked by stones set just far enough apart to guide without confining. I follow it briefly, then stop, sensing that the journey does not require distance right now. Instead, it invites stillness within motion, attention within simplicity. I turn back toward the river. The boat waits where I left it, as if time has passed around it rather than through it. I step aboard once more, letting the water accept me back into its steady progression. As the boat moves on, the settlement recedes, becoming part of the layered landscape: river, field, stone, sky, each holding its place without needing to be named. I rest into the rhythm again, carried forward by a current that has always known where it is going, even when I do not. The river widens as the day advances, its banks pulling back slightly, as if giving the water more room to breathe. The boat moves with the same even assurance, though the current here feels broader, less focused on direction and more on presence. I let my hands rest at my sides and allow the motion to continue without adjustment. The sun has climbed to a comfortable height, warming without pressing. Light glances off the water in soft flashes that appear and disappear before they can be followed. I notice how the surface never holds the same pattern twice. Each moment replaces itself gently, without regret. Ahead, the landscape grows quieter again. Settlements thin, giving way to open stretches where the land meets the sky with little interruption. Tall grasses line parts of the shore, their tips bending and straightening in slow response to the breeze. Beyond them, stone formations rise low and steady, shaped by time rather than design. I guide the boat toward a shallow inlet where the water slows and darkens. Stepping ashore, I find the ground firm beneath a thin layer of sand, its texture cool where the sun has not yet reached. The air here feels suspended, as though sound itself moves more carefully. A short distance inland stands a solitary structure, small and unadorned. Its walls are smooth, its doorway open, its orientation precise. Nothing about it draws attention, yet it feels intentionally placed, aligned with something beyond the visible landscape. I approach without expectation. Inside, the space is spare. Light enters from a narrow opening above, falling straight down onto the floor in a defined column. Dust moves slowly through it, each particle visible, unhurried. The walls hold no carvings, no inscriptions. The silence here feels complete, not waiting to be filled. I stand within the light and feel its warmth gather gently. It is not intense. It does not command. It simply exists, marking the passage of the sun with quiet accuracy. I sense that this place measures time not to control it, but to remain in conversation with it. When I step back outside, the brightness feels momentarily expanded, as though my eyes have been recalibrated. The river glimmers beyond the inlet, continuing its steady course. I return to the boat and push off lightly, rejoining the current without disruption. As I drift on, clouds begin to form high above, thin, stretched, almost translucent. They move slowly, reshaping the sky in ways that feel incidental yet precise. Their shadows pass over the water, dimming and releasing the light in long, gradual waves. The afternoon unfolds without distinction. There is no clear marker separating 1 hour from the next. Instead, the day feels like a single, extended moment, subtly modulated by light, temperature, and sound. I notice my own breathing aligning with the rhythm of the boat, my thoughts loosening further. In the distance, I glimpse another temple, smaller than the one before, set close to the river. Its stone has darkened with age, absorbing centuries of sun. I do not approach it. Seeing it from afar feels sufficient, as though proximity would add nothing essential. The river curves again, carrying me past it. I sense that each place here does not ask to be entered. It exists fully whether witnessed or not. This understanding settles quietly, like sediment finding its place at the river's bottom. As the light begins its gradual softening toward evening, I remain adrift, held by water that remembers more than it reveals, moving forward with a patience that requires no destination. Evening approaches again, not as a return but as a variation. The light changes character, becoming more angled, more selective in what it touches. The river reflects this shift, its surface turning from bright to burnished, holding long streaks of gold that stretch and dissolve with each movement. The air cools gradually. I feel it first along my arms, then in the breath I draw in. Lighter now, less weighted by heat. The boat glides through a section where the water narrows slightly, drawing closer to both banks as if to listen to the land more closely. Here, the shore is edged with stone embankments that guide the river's flow without restraining it. I step out again, following a low wall that curves gently inland. The stones are fitted carefully, each one chosen to rest exactly where it belongs. There is a sense of trust in their placement, a confidence that they will remain. Beyond the wall lies a cultivated garden, modest in size, enclosed not to separate it from the world, but to give it shape. Rows of plants grow in quiet order, their leaves catching the last of the day's warmth. Water channels thread between them, narrow and precise, carrying the river inward in measured portions. I walk along the paths between the rows. The earth here is dark and rich, holding the scent of growth and moisture. A figure moves at the far end of the garden, tending without haste, adjusting a channel, smoothing the soil. We do not acknowledge one another. The work does not require witnesses. As the sun lowers further, shadows stretch across the garden, lengthening the space between things. The air fills with the sound of insects beginning their evening rhythm, a soft, continuous layer that settles over everything without drawing attention to itself. At the garden's edge stands a small bench carved from a single block of stone. I sit and rest my hands on my knees, feeling the day settle around me. From here, I can see the river again through a narrow opening, its surface now darkened, reflecting the deepening sky. The first evening star appears, faint but steady. It does not announce itself. It simply becomes visible when the light allows. I sense how this moment has repeated itself countless times here, witnessed and unwitnessed, each occurrence complete on its own. The figure in the garden finishes their task and departs, leaving the space as it is, neither finished nor unfinished. The plants remain. The water continues its careful flow. Nothing feels abandoned. I stand and make my way back to the river. The boat waits, its outline softened by the dimming light. I step in and feel the familiar shift as water and wood accept the change. As I drift once more into the center of the current, the sky deepens toward blue, then toward something quieter still. The river carries the colors downward, blending them into a single moving surface. Night begins again, not as closure, but as continuation. I remain with the motion, with the slow unfolding of light into dark, held within a place where time is not counted, only lived. Night settles with a deeper confidence now, as though it knows it will be allowed to stay. The sky becomes a broad, dark vessel, holding stars more clearly defined than before. They appear steadier, less tentative, their light cool and precise. The river mirrors them imperfectly, stretching each point into a trembling line that moves with the water. The boat drifts into a quieter reach where sound thins again. The insects soften their course, leaving more space between notes. Even the water seems to hush itself, flowing with a smoother, heavier motion. I feel as though I have entered a longer breath. Ahead, the outline of a larger stone structure emerges from the dark, not sudden, but gradual, as my eyes adjust. It rises close to the riverbank, broad-based and deliberate, its edges softened by distance and night. I do not think of it as monumental. It feels more like an idea given shape and allowed to remain. I guide the boat closer and step onto the stone landing. The surface beneath my feet is cool, holding the memory of heat from earlier, but offering none of it now. The air here feels especially still, as if shaped by the presence of the structure itself. I walk along its base. The stones are immense, fitted so closely that the seams between them feel theoretical rather than real. Running my hand along one, I sense the patience required to place it, the waiting involved in allowing it to settle into the land's long story. There is an opening, low, measured, inviting neither hesitation nor urgency. Inside, the temperature shifts again. The space holds darkness gently, not as absence, but as containment. My steps sound distant here, absorbed almost immediately. A shaft of moonlight enters from above, falling across the floor at a precise angle. It moves so slowly that motion can only be sensed by staying with it for a while. I stand at its edge and watch the light advance across the stone, marking time without numbers. This place does not ask questions. It does not answer them either. It feels aligned with something larger than explanation, something that does not require understanding to be effective. I sense that people once stood here not to seek certainty, but to feel steadiness, to place themselves briefly inside a scale that softened personal concerns. I sit on the stone floor and rest my hands beside me. The coolness rises through the fabric of my clothing, grounding, calm. Thoughts come more slowly now, and when they do, they arrive without urgency, content to linger or fade. Eventually, I stand again. The moonlight has shifted slightly, its edge no longer where it was. I step back outside, where the river waits, unchanged in its motion yet never the same. Returning to the boat feels natural, like continuing a sentence already in progress. I push off gently, and the water accepts me back without comment. The structure recedes into darkness, not disappearing, simply becoming part of the night's depth. As the boat moves on, I feel a quiet settling within myself, as though some internal weight has found its resting place. The stars continue their steady watch, the river its unbroken path. Nothing needs to be added. I remain with the motion, carried forward through the calm density of night, knowing that this journey is less about where it leads than about how it holds me along the way. The night begins to ease its hold sometime before I notice. There is no clear moment when darkness loosens. Instead, the stars soften slightly, their contrast gentler against a sky that has begun to accept the idea of morning. The river reflects this change almost immediately, its surface growing less opaque, more receptive. I drift through this in-between hour, when neither night nor day fully claims the world. The air is cool and still, carrying a clarity that feels cleansing rather than sharp. Each breath seems to arrive already complete, requiring no effort. The banks widen again, revealing long stretches of open ground where the desert comes close to the water, as if curious. The sand here holds the faintest traces of movement, lines shaped by wind, impressions left by animals passing earlier, already softening, already returning to smoothness. I step ashore and walk a short distance inland. The ground slopes gently upward, offering a quiet view of the river's course. From here, the Nile appears less like a path and more like a presence, steady, continuous, unconcerned with edges. As the sky lightens, color returns carefully. Pale rose touches the horizon, then fades into gold. The stones around me catch this light and release it slowly, as though reluctant to let go of the night entirely. Shadows shorten, not abruptly, but with a kind of courtesy. I sense movement nearby, not sound, but awareness. The land itself feels attentive at this hour, holding the balance between what has been and what is about to begin. There is no anticipation, only readiness. I return to the boat and push off once more. The river feels subtly different now, its current slightly quicker, as if responding to the shift above. Light spreads across the surface, dissolving the last reflections of stars until only sky remains. Ahead, the familiar shapes of cultivated land reappear. Fields emerge from the dimness, their edges defined by channels that glint briefly as they catch the new light. The geometry of care reveals itself again, precise yet gentle. Smoke rises faintly from distant hearths, pale against the brightening sky. Day is assembling itself piece by piece, not in contrast to the night, but as its continuation. The work of living resumes where it paused, without ceremony. I remain on the water, moving alongside this quiet return. There is a sense of completion in the air, not of ending, but of a full cycle turning smoothly into the next. Nothing feels unfinished. The sun lifts itself just above the horizon, and with it comes warmth that spreads slowly, evenly. The river carries it forward, holding the light the way it holds everything else, without grasping, without release. I stay with the motion, aware that this journey has been less about passage through places than about learning how to rest within them. The Nile continues, ancient and immediate, guiding without instruction. The day settles into itself as the sun rises higher, though it does so with restraint. Light spreads evenly now, filling spaces without pressing into them. The river carries this brightness forward, its surface calm, assured, unconcerned with display. I remain in the boat, letting it drift along a familiar stretch where land, water, and sky seem to agree on their proportions. Nothing stands out as remarkable, and yet everything feels complete. This is a place where significance does not announce itself. It accumulates quietly through repetition. The banks pass by in a slow, continuous exchange. A stand of trees offers shade, then recedes. Stone gives way to sand, sand to cultivated earth. Each transition happens without edge or emphasis, as if the land prefers continuity over contrast. I sense that my movement has grown almost indistinguishable from stillness. The boat advances, but my attention rests. There is no need to choose where to look. Everything arrives in its own time. Ripples, reflections, distant shapes softened by heat. As the river curves gently eastward, the structures of earlier days, temples, walls, gardens, are no longer visible. They have not disappeared. They simply exist elsewhere now, held within the same land, the same rhythm. The Nile does not carry memories forward as objects. It carries them as alignment. I feel a subtle easing, as though the journey has gradually taught me how to arrive without stopping. There is no final place waiting ahead, no point at which motion resolves into conclusion. Instead, there is only this steady participation in a world that does not require my understanding to welcome me. The water laps softly against the hull. The sound is familiar enough to fade into the background, like breathing. Above, the sky holds its shape without effort. Below, the river continues its long, deliberate path, shaped by time, yet never delayed by it. Eventually, I allow the boat to drift closer to the shore, not because the journey ends, but because it no longer needs to be marked. I step out onto the bank and feel the ground receive me with the same quiet acceptance I have known since arriving here. Standing there, I sense no separation between movement and rest, between river and land, between then and now. Ancient Egypt does not feel distant. It feels present in the way stone holds warmth, in the way water remembers direction, in the way light returns each day without instruction. I turn slightly, not away from the river, but with it, letting its presence remain beside me rather than beneath me. The journey continues in this posture, open, unhurried, complete, without closure. The Nile flows on, and so do I, carried forward not by urgency, but by quiet belonging.